Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing part 2 of my February wrap-up. Last video I talked about all of the sci-fi fantasy books that I read in the month of February, so I will link that down below if you want to check it out. This video I will be talking about the 5 books that I read outside of sci-fi and fantasy. These are a hodgepodge of genres. There are a whole bunch of genres in here, so I'm just going to get right into it, and I'm going to go in the order of my enjoyment, so my least enjoyed to my most enjoyed. The first book I have to talk about is The Kingdom of Back by Marie Lu. So this book is I'm going to call it like historical fiction magical realism book, because it takes the story of Mozart's sister, and if you didn't know, Mozart did have a sister in real life who was just as talented as him, but she's very much been lost in history just because she was not allowed to go on to do the fantastic things that Mozart did due to being a woman in that time period. So Marie Lu took kind of that story of Mozart's sister and wanted to tell a story from her perspective. There was also this real thing that Mozart and his sister came up with. It was their own little fantasy world that they created called the Kingdom of Back. So this book is very much rooted in things that really happened in history, which I found so fascinating to explore. And it kind of served as this inspiration for Marie Lu to write her version of what she thinks that Mozart's sister might have been feeling during that time growing up with Mozart, and also kind of her own version of what the Kingdom of Back might have been like for those two children. Overall, I thought this book was pretty good. The problem, I think this is totally personal preference. This is totally me as a reader finding out just more about myself as a reader. I'm just not a fan of magical realism. Every time we got a glimpse into the Kingdom of Back, I felt myself zoning out because I just didn't care. I wanted to get back to the real life story that I found fascinating. I really, really enjoyed Mozart's sister's point of view. I really enjoyed what this book's intention was and what it had to say, but I did not like exploring the Kingdom of Back. I wish that we hadn't had that in this story at all. Which is so sad to say, because that's the whole point of this book, was to explore their real life feelings through this fantasy world and draw the parallels between the Kingdom of Back and the real world, and kind of the Kingdom of Back being a metaphor and what was happening in the Kingdom of Back being a metaphor what was really happening to Mozart's sister. I get it. I got the purpose behind it. I got the intention behind it, but I still didn't care. I didn't care about the princess in Kingdom of Back. I didn't care about the evil little dude in Kingdom of Back. I wish it had just been a historical fiction of Mozart's sister, and from that perspective, because that part of it was so interesting. The ending was beautiful. It was well done, and the message at the end was really well done. And I like what Marie Lu was going for. I just didn't care about the Kingdom of Back. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I think but that's totally personal preference to me as a reader. So I still overall am really glad I read this. I definitely say it's pretty good and would recommend it, but I just don't like magical realism. I'm sorry. The next book I read was Crooked Kingdom by Agatha Christie. Editing Jessie here to just clarify that I just said Crooked Kingdom and I meant Crooked House by Agatha Christie. I'm obviously still reeling from just having watched the Shadow and Bone trailer, so I guess I had the Grishaverse on my mind. Continuing on. So this one is the Barnes & Noble collectible edition, has a couple of different stories from Agatha Christie in it, and one of them is Crooked House. I really enjoy Agatha Christie's books. I've enjoyed each one that I've read, and Then There Were None is definitely my favorite so far, but Crooked House was still just like a cozy mystery novel about this family whose grandfather has passed away, and it's very suspicious. They think he passed away in maybe what was not really an accident, but was very much on purpose, and we're trying to figure out who done it. And you've got kind of this outsider to the family coming in. He's the boyfriend of one of the members of this family. He's coming in, doing some investigating, trying to figure out who done it. It's a classic, like very cozy mystery novel. You kind of get each little alibi from each different character. You're trying to figure out along with the main character. These are just so much fun to read. I would say it was very good. I did not call the twist. I still have not called an Agatha Christie twist. I have not figured out one of them yet. This one I definitely didn't figure out, but I really liked it. I really liked the twist at the end. So again, if you like those like cozy mystery novels, it was a super quick read, super short, to the point. I think for what it was really, really good, but it wasn't like anything that blew me away. The character work wasn't like the best I've ever read, so it wasn't like a 5-star feeling, but it was still a fun read. So I every now and then I like reading one of these little cozy mysteries and trying to figure out who's the culprit. The next book I read was Such a Fun Age by Kiley, Reid. This one I gave a very good. So this one is very much an adult contemporary that follows two main characters, one being this Black woman who is a babysitter to this white family, and she is out one night and gets a call from the white family, like, can you come pick up our child really quick and babysit for just a couple hours? And so she agrees to it, and so she takes the child to the grocery store just to shop and gets approached by an officer and has this really horrible, uncomfortable encounter with him and a couple of the other people in the grocery store, and this kind of serves as a springboard for what happens in the rest of the book and the types of conversations that these characters have with each other. It's very much a character study. The plot itself, I would say if you're a plot-driven reader, this might not connect with you as much, but if you really like just diving deep into the psyches of different characters, then I think that this is a really good one, and something that is very eye-opening because it shows how little microaggressions can be really harmful, and it explores this whole idea of kind of like the performative activism. So it was a really good read. I really liked our main character, and I really liked the child character, but there are a couple characters in this book that are extremely frustrating to read from, and I think that that's the point. And unfortunately, what I didn't see in this book was really any of those characters growing, but I think that was also the point, because sometimes you don't really learn from your mistakes, and you don't really grow as much as you need to. So I think that this book, it kind of, to me, felt like the same level of drama as like Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. Like if you liked Little Fires Everywhere, I think you might really like Such a Fun Age. But again, like the plot itself, there wasn't much there. It was very much following just these characters and examining the relationships between these characters and their pasts, and how their pasts affect their present views and those sorts of things. So I really enjoyed this one. I thought it had a lot of good things to say. So I would definitely recommend picking this one up, especially if you enjoy those contemporary character studies. The next book I read was The Chain by Adrian McKinty. This was such a wild ride. Oh my God. I was on the edge of my seat this whole book. This was terrifying. This was a terrifying book. So The Chain follows this woman who has a daughter, and at the beginning of the book, her daughter is kidnapped, and she is told by the kidnappers that in order to get her daughter back, she has to kidnap another child, because what she finds out is that the people who kidnapped her child, their own child was also kidnapped. So it's very much a chain of people having to kidnap other children in order to get their children back. And once you're in the chain, there's no way out. You're in it for life. So if the person that you bring into the chain ends up going to the police or doesn't fulfill their end of the bargain and end up kidnapping a child, then you have to kill their child and start over with a new one. Wild concept. I was like, okay, this sounds really good. Like, I gotta read this. This is a book that is very much a thriller because it keeps you on the edge of your seat. It is tense. It is fast-paced. It is terrifying to think of what you would do in these types of situations that these characters are put into. But I will say that if you are a reader who wants a twist in your books, this is not for you. I know that Abby and Vish and Sam, they all read Behind Closed Doors because I loved Behind Closed Doors. And that kind of felt like the chain where that book was tense and on the edge of your seat the whole time, but there's no twist. And they didn't like it because there was no twist. This book doesn't have a twist. There's no twist. It is just a thriller because you are so tense the whole book and you're just like, oh my god, how are we going to get out of this? So if you are a reader who likes having those mind-bending, crazy twists at the end, this is not what I would recommend to you. That is not the point of this book at all. If you are a reader who just likes that experience of like having to turn the pages because you have to know what's going to happen and you have to know how they're going to make it out of this, and you're terrified because you're like, oh my god, what would I do if this was me, then I would recommend this to you because it is a really fun one. It's a really fun one. I would say this is very good. I had a lot of fun with it. It wasn't perfect by any means, like it's not a new all-time favorite or anything like that, but it was so fun to read. So I was definitely hooked the whole time, and I would recommend this one. The last book that I read and my favorite of this particular wrap-up was Atomic Habits by James Clear. I tabbed this so much as I was reading it. Atomic Habits is a nonfiction that just kind of explores the ideas behind how we form habits and how to break bad habits and form good ones. And what I really, really, really liked about this nonfiction is everything in it was very actionable. So it actually gives you steps to do to build these better habits rather than just defining habits for you and diving into like the theory and psychology of habits. It's very much a book where if you need specific steps to take in your life or things to try in your life to form these better habits, this is going to give you some really good ideas. There were some really interesting tidbits that I would tab that weren't necessarily like the most life-changing or things that you didn't already know, but he just framed them in a way that made you kind of rethink how you thought of something. So for example, he talks about goals a lot in this video because when we make goals, we're kind of telling ourselves to form better habits, right? Like you have a goal to lose weight. Well, you have to have habits like eating better or working out to lose weight. So he relates habits to goals a lot. One of the things that really stuck out to me was he mentioned something so simple like winners and losers have the same goals. And that's so true. If you think about it, especially frame it in like the context of, you know, maybe being on a sports team, both sports teams have the same goal. They want to win the game. So goals at the end of the day aren't going to get you what you want. It's more of the systems that you put in place in your life to achieve that goal. So that's what we really explore in this book. And I think he did such a good job of offering very clear steps that are very actionable. These are all very reasonable steps that anyone can take in their own lives to form better habits. These are things that I'm going to be trying, things that I've been thinking about every single day. I think if you've read a ton of nonfiction books on habits already, I don't know how much value you would gain from this. So this is coming from a perspective of someone who's not read any nonfiction books on habits and how you form them. So this was all kind of newer information to me. I found it incredibly life-changing because it's things I'm going to think about every single day and things I'm going to try to implement in my own life every single day. And I got the value that I wanted out of this. So I highly recommend this if you're like me and just haven't really done any exploration on habits and you are someone who wants to think more about that in your life. Definitely check this out. I highly recommend it. I ended up loving it. This is one that I will continue to come back to over and over again in the future, just to give myself a quick reminder of kind of what I can do in my everyday life to be the person that I want to be. So that is the wrap up for all of the other books that I read in the month of February. Did you see any that you've read and what did you think of them? I would love to know in the comments down below. And did you see any that you really want to read? I would love to know that as well. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!